at you when you sleep. Sit up! Elizabeth, you wake up!
Hello, police.
Officer, I would like to report 4 bodies in my backyard.
You all right?
Wait right there, Mr. Bennell.
How do you know my name?
Hang up, Matthew.
I didn't tell you my name.
Hang up.
I didn't tell him my name.
They're all a part of it. They're all parts, all...
Paranoia-fueled world of Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, a remake that imagines the chilling terror of its 1956 predecessor. This time, the horror is bigger, it's bolder, and eerily relevant to our modern times. We're thrilled to be joined by not one, but 2 special guests to dissect this sci-fi horror classic. First, we have Christy, who we'll refer to as Strawberry for the show.
Hi, my name is Christy. You can call me Strawberry. Most people know me as Strawberry. My social media, you can find me, is actually Traveling Strawberries. So if you want to see some cool cosplay, some acting stuff, some horror things, travel, then that's where you can go.
Boosh.
Awesome. And then we also have Evan Brandon with us. Evan.
Hey, how are y'all? I'm Evan. I don't have too much to say just yet on where I'm going, but me and the wife, we're starting our own podcast coming soon. We're just going to be watching some bad movies, some good movies, just all the way around, all betweener. We're not just specific horror, but we like to mess around and see what we can see.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, dude.
Jonathan and I just recorded some not so great movies ourselves. So that was, I don't know if you've ever seen, we were diving into, I'm brain farting on
Doll Men vs. Demonic Toys.
Full moon features. We were diving into some full moon films. So some of the lesser known ones. But yeah,
well,
I love that.
Just write that down so I'd have something to look at.
It's amazing how many bad films there are on Tubi. Thank you, Tim.
It's great. I just let Tubi tell me what to watch next, and I don't have a bad time, whether the movie's good or not. It's always fun. So together, we'll explore this film's unsettling themes of conformity, the brilliant performances from a stellar cast including Donald Sutherland, R.I.P., Brooke Adams, and Jeff Goldblum, and the masterful direction of Philip Kaufman that elevates this remake to legendary status. For the 1978 remake, as we've been doing, this is night 5, as we've been doing for the previous nights, this film is known for its eerie atmosphere and escalating paranoia, so we need a cocktail that captures that unsettling and suspenseful nature of this classic. We have Pod Person Punch, a drink that reflects the film's mysterious and creeping dread with a touch of 70s flair. So head over to our Instagram, find that recipe, and mix it for yourself. Remember, we want you to be a part of this Fright Fest. Watch along with us and share your thoughts and reviews. We have a handy little link in our Instagram bio where you can submit your scores the exact same way we do. Whether you're a fan of the originals or prefer the remakes, your opinion matters. We'll be tallying up the scores and tagging everyone who submits a review with a valid tag to see how these head-to-head scores play out when Halloween rolls past and we're stuck in the gray despair of days until next Halloween. We'll post the winners, the original or the remake. So get ready for a deep dive into the unsettling world of Pod People, and keep an eye out because you never know who might be next. Okay, so I'm excited to have Yeah. I'm excited to have two guests for this one. Honestly, it's always a good time when we have more people here. So let's dive right into this. Who is a first-time watcher? Anybody a first-time viewer of this?
Is
Shame.
Okay.
guilty.
No, I'm kidding.
So we've got two.
There's so much
awesome.
to
So
watch.
we have two experienced
I might have
viewers
seen
and
it, but
two
if I
new
saw it, it
viewers.
was
I
so
love
long
that.
ago I don't remember it.
So what do we think of the story? Who has something particular about the story here?
I have a question. Do you think this is just
Yeah.
like about Donald Sutherland though? Do you
Love
think
that guy.
like he always looked like he was in his 40s?
just perpetually.
Depending on the
aged.
time period. I
Because
think like in the late 90s, he just always looked like a white-haired old dude.
yeah,
I was gonna say he always
but,
looked
like,
white-haired in my memory, but yeah. I
Well, in
almost
this,
forget
'cause
that
I'm
he's
like,
the same
how-
dude.
as the white-haired guy, you mean?
Right, yes, exactly. Watching this movie, I
Yeah.
almost forget because I grew up with the white-haired version, and then going back to see this, I'm
Yes.
like, oh yeah, that is the same guy. It is the same guy. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at him and I was like, did he always look older?
As my daughter came up and she said, "What are you watching, Dad?" I said, "Oh, Invasion of the Body Snatchers." She said, "Is that the guy from Home Alone?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "That hair, Dad." I said,
No, it's not Marv.
"No, baby." I said, "Not- exactly, not Marv."
That's so funny.
I could see that. He was in Chud. So when we get to the story, this is a remake of a movie that is based on a book. So the book was originally published in, I believe, 1957.
54.
54.
Oh, 54. I'm a couple years
The
off.
Body Snatchers.
Now, see,
Yeah.
that's really interesting to me because the whole idea of it being like falling into like little boxes on the hillside kind of idea where you're like all conforming. The fact that, would you say 54? Like in 1954, they were thinking that. I wouldn't imagine that to be a thing until maybe like the 60s, right? Till like the hippie movement. So it's
I mean, that's
interesting.
10 years off of World War II.
Yeah.
So the original, and we'll get into this when we meet again to discuss the original. The original was really, it's been interpreted as a commentary on the McCarthyism and fear of communism during the Cold War. So it was really a Cold War kind of horror film. But this one took the version to a different level, shifting the setting to San Francisco. And it just emphasizes that omnipresent dread of losing your humanity. There's something about this film that takes just the idea and it makes it so much more successful to me. I think it makes, like, I've seen both versions. I've even seen the one from, there are 4 versions of this film.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
We have the 56 original, the 78 remake, and then we're not going to talk about the 93 version called just Body Snatchers, and the 2007 version with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig called The Invasion.
I like that one.
Ooh, did you
not
know?
know that.
So the girl that plays Nancy, Veronica Cartwright, she is actually in that.
Okay.
And I didn't know she was Lambert in Aliens, and she was also Kathy in The Birds.
Whoa.
She's been a lot of
Nice.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I love that while this is a remake, it still expands the story, much like last night we talked The Fly with Travis from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie, also starring Jeff Goldblum, expands on the original in a lot of fantastic ways. And I feel like this movie does the exact same, kind of taking that premise of switching out the person you know with someone you don't and expanding on it in a way that really increases that dread and that paranoia. So I really I like this story. I don't think this movie's perfect, and we'll get into that as we go. But I think this movie is, I think it's definitely underrated and not seen enough, not talked about enough. I think this story is unique.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take it all through the decades, there's plenty of times that anybody could think so many different things. Like right now, it's cell phones. People are zombified into their cell phones, just like they just like conform into
Yeah.
what's this saying to us? What are we all going to conform to do?
If I wake up and start doing TikTok dances, my wife knows it's not me anymore. It's she'll know. It's not
Not for
him.
at least 3.5 hours.
There's something about this film too that also reminds me of They Live, even though it's different.
Yes.
Like, you know, as
Yes.
there's something kind of similar there with I guess with the conforming and following in line. But I guess They Live would be kind of after they took over, right? Where they're still humans.
They're trying to hide the fact that, that's an interesting idea. The fact that They Live is a pseudo sequel to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I also got a lot of 1984 comparisons with this. Not so much like exactly 1984, but you're watching this world change and you need to conform with them, or, you know, so I see all that. I love that. That's one of the things I love about this movie, honestly. So for me, I gave this a 4 on the scale. I thought it was a pretty great story. It expands on the original, but I had to dock the fly for being a remake. This is a remake. So it's not a 5 out of 5 on originality, but it is a 4 because it expands on the idea in a lot of great ways.
Right on. For me, it's the idea that this otherworldly force comes to take over, and it's not in a humanoid form. It's not something that you notice. It's something very subtle that just creeps in out of nowhere, like an invasive species to take over. And how quickly the turnaround on that is, and how easy it is, as it were, quote unquote, to like manipulate people, and I thought it was really kind of kick ass. So I was rocking it at a 4 on that scale.
Yeah, in the beginning where the beginning's really cool, where like it's showing all that, like, and it was like almost like they filmed smoke and then stuff underwater and like layered it or something. You know what I'm saying?
See, that's interesting.
I've seen videos of like old school Disney stuff doing effects like that.
Yeah. I thought it was like a microscopic level, so I think that's interesting that you saw that. I thought it was super cool too. I agree, that intro, and then I wanted to talk about, since you brought it up. Sorry, I'm interrupting now.
You're fine.
But the goopy rain. So have you ever heard about that?
Goopy rain, like in real life?
Yes. So the beginning of the film, when it opens up with that gelatinous clear globs on the plants.
Oh, yes.
That actually happened in Washington, the state of Washington, Oakville, Washington. So where it rained blobs of that gelatinous goo that landed on stuff. So the thing is, the rain happened after this movie. It happened in 1994, so it was significantly after this movie. But I couldn't help but be reminded, because I listen to all kinds of weird podcasts about random things like that.
Yeah.
And watching that, I was like, wow, something like this really happened, even though it's completely unrelated. Just the idea of it. Like, if I had seen that gelatinous rain, I probably would have been freaked out because of this movie. But yeah, you mentioned that, and it is a really cool, subtle intro to the film. It doesn't shock us.
Yeah.
Right away.
Like, what's going on here? What
Exactly. I appreciate that. Yeah.
The flowers and everything too. And when they show, there's one point they show like the little tendrils like coming out, and you can see it was something that was already out and they like reversed it. You know what I mean? But it went like, I don't know. It's really cool. I thought the practical effects in this movie, to me, are like amazing, especially for the time. I feel like that part was like, wow, seeing a lot of that stuff.
Yep. So what did you score the story?
4.
4 for
Yeah.
you too?
Yep.
Evan, what were your thoughts on the story?
I gave it a 4 myself. I do believe. I just did it, which is so funny. But just watching through the whole thing, I had a good time watching it. And I compared it, unfortunately, to the original because I just watched that a couple weeks ago.
It's okay.
But, the story, how it came out this time was so much better. And I was like, oh, this is much nicer. I can accept this. Which, not to say anything bad about the original either, but it was like, whoa, mind blown. This is much nicer. It's cleaner. It's the whole, like Strawberry just said, was the effects that they had for the time, was awesome. It's like, man, y'all are doing good until I see somebody get their head hit in with a rake, and it's like, okay, come on.
I thought that was good too. I liked that.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, even though it's what, I feel like the movie now is like a little campy in general, so I feel like you can accept that like little head rake thing.
Yeah. So it seems we are pretty unanimous in 4s across the board for the story. So the character for this one is one that I tend to, if you've listened to the show, I go by character arc and not how much I care for the characters. So whether I like them or not, I tend to look at it as, does the story tell us a transformative journey for these characters? I know other people score it on if they like the characters, and that's totally fine. So this is an interesting one to think about because this movie basically starts with your characters in a happy everyday life. And then that transformative journey they go on is slowly realizing that the world around them is not the world they knew yesterday, or that the people they encounter, I love that encounter that probably, I would argue this one couldn't be deleted because I love it. But when he takes his clothes to the dry cleaners,
yeah,
and the first time he drops them off and the lady's like, oh, this won't come out. And her husband goes, that's not, there's something wrong. It's not her. There's something off. And then he comes back like an hour and a half later in the film and he's like, oh, she's better now. And you're like, oh shit.
He's got that creepy ass smile. Like, she's much better now.
Yeah. You're like, oh shit, something's going on.
The only thing that bothered me about that scene, this is really weird, was he was like, oh, that's coffee. She's like, this is not coffee. And I was like, well, what else would it be? Like,
and he's like, it is coffee. I put it there myself.
Yeah. I was like, what?
If she's an alien, she doesn't know what coffee is like. Yeah. It's her first day on Earth.
It was so stupid, but it bothered me because I was like, what was that line about? Like, this is not coffee. Like,
I did wonder, I was like, what is it going to be about? And then that ended up not mattering. But I was also like, who is she? Is it blood?
Maybe it was she forgot her line and it was improvised.
Maybe. It's not coffee.
I also there is this storyline that as I'm watching it with my wife, so we get the scene where I'm terrible with character names. Even if I love the movie, I can never remember their names. Mm-hmm. But Sutherland's character, which is Matthew.
Matthew, yeah.
And then Elizabeth. So there's this weird, it's not a romance. But as I'm watching it with my wife, we get this scene towards the end where they share a kiss. And she's like, what's that about? And I'm like, honestly, I think it's just about survival at this point. They've watched everybody they know. They're feeling alone. It's just the two of them. I don't think it's about anything more than just that companionship of us in this moment.
No, it's clear he had feelings for her.
He
had feelings for her, bro.
There's that one part where he's like, I love you, and she's like, I love you. But that is at the end where maybe it was because they went through so much together. But if you watch them kiss in that scene too, she doesn't move her lips, because I was like, she don't look like she wanted that kiss that much.
But it's a terror kiss.
If you pay attention,
and a fear kiss.
She was just like,
I agree. I do think there is that underlying something going on. I mean, when I'm watching it on rewatch again, I'm also like, she has this boyfriend husband situation going on.
And he was hot for the time. He was a hottie.
He was in Black Christmas, which is another movie we're doing for 13 Nights of Halloween. So
Nice.
he was in Black Christmas, but she has that situation going on, but then she's also going over to Sutherland's house for dinner just alone with him. And I don't know quite what it seems to be a little bit beyond work friends.
Yeah.
More casual time. You
Yeah.
know, coming off the summer of love, maybe you're a little more open around that time.
They
So-
definitely,
Just eat the piece of celery. It's all good.
they definitely have.
It's delicious.
They definitely have some sort of chemistry, and when he's like, "Do that thing with your eyes" or whatever, and she does that like thing
Oh
with her
yeah,
eye-
that was buggy.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
like
cool.
it shows you that they have like it seems to me that shows a long friendship, right? Or at least like it's been a while.
Work husband, work wife.
Yeah.
I didn't take it as explicitly romantic. I did take it as a very close relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I first thought it was obsession.
You thought it was what?
Obsession?
Like he was obsessed with her.
Oh, I mean, who could blame him? But
Right?
Right?
Good looking lady.
She shows her titties for a very long time in this movie.
And it's PG. The movie is PG.
Well, just nothing wrong with that. No complaints here. I mean, better than like the weird puppet, like mummy thing on the floor that was growing version of her.
Yeah.
That was really gross and all.
yeah, this is the
But part of the point, I guess.
no, for a PG movie. This has a head smashing.
Wait, this is PG?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
this
like-
was before. This was before PG-13 existed, but yeah, it has titties and it has a pretty gruesome head smash. So
Yeah, it's
That's,
awesome.
I was sitting there with my wife. I said, "Oh my god, there's boobs, Tiff."
still, it always reminds me of when I was a kid, and like the first experience with that was watching the comedy Airplane because it was
Oh.
PG, so I was allowed to, and I was like, "That's yep." I did the same situation, a PG movie with boobs, but that doesn't happen anymore.
Nope.
But anyways,
Well,
so
well, unless you get it on sci-fi, then it's PG boobs. But
there just has to be like 3 or 4 of them on the same. Anyways, so for the character, I do think it's that interesting. Most movies, I think we kind of see a positive character arc where they're discovering something about themselves and growing and having this happy ending. And this movie is kind of the opposite of that, where they are learning about themselves and experiencing that, but this is not going to be a happy ending. This is
Yeah.
kind of a bleak character arc. It's a negative, it's almost a regression where we go from this group of people who trust each other. They're stuck in this together. And then one by one, they don't know who they can trust anymore. And it just devolves. And I love that about this progression, this kind of, I don't want to say it's a lack of trust because they trust each other, but they're worried about each other. And then when they lose sight of each other, they don't know if they can trust coming back in. And so I love that about this character arc. I don't think it's super compelling. I think it probably could be told a little bit better. There are some, I'll get into my complaints about it at the end. But yeah, I gave this a 4 on the character arc because I think it's a very unique character arc. Like I said, it's not a positive arc. It's definitely a downward arc for these characters. Just, it's bleak. I love bleak. I love it. I love it. So yeah, that's my thought on character. I gave it a 4.
I also gave it a 4. See, my thing with the character arc with this was the fact that, oh, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't seen it, at the end when with Donald Sutherland with that classic, like, you know, that scene where he ends up being one, I was like, that's quite the character arc, right? He ends up being one. Like, so I was thinking about it because I was like, they don't really, I mean, they kind of changed throughout it. Like, I had a hard time finding where to place this. you know, because I was like, yeah, they change a little bit. But that, to me, I mean, if you're going to consider it part of his arc, is like, whoa.
Oh, for sure. It's also
That's-
like the
yep,
most
okay.
iconic scene from the film.
Yeah. Yep.
I think I put mine at 3. You know, I like the whole development of all the characters all the way through. You know, Matthew at the very end, even though he was a
Pod person.
he looked at Elizabeth so lovingly in that elevator. And even though we were kind of like, oh yeah, he's still him, and come to find out it wasn't him, and you're like, man,
I didn't
Is he
even think
still-
of that.
is he still holding back those feelings for Elizabeth? Is it somehow still some way getting past those aliens? I mean,
That gave me
was
goosebumps,
his,
Evan.
was
Yeah, that was
his
good.
love strong enough to proceed through the aliens?
I didn't even
And if
think
so,
of that.
And if so, I give him a higher character arc.
Yeah.
But not knowing, I'm putting it at a 3, which is a nice good in between. Let's keep it there. That's where I want it.
Okay. I love that misdirection because you brought it up, and they teach us in that final act that you can fake that. You can fake it. You can trick them. And so the way that fake out at the end is set up, that you think he's just like resigned to it, tricking them, trying to get through the daily life. And then it totally flips it on you, and you get that shriek.
Would you
and
possibly think it's an evolution of the alien?
Yeah, because the thing is he's not, nobody's watching him for him to
Yeah.
trick,
Oh, he was
except
in a whole-
us, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
he was in a
he's
whole
just
group.
living his life, but he's still looking at her like that. So he's still feeling that. I didn't even think
But-
about this.
But what
yes.
if, like, they said, like, you hear them say while he's hiding under the dock, he can't sleep forever. So, like, how is he still staying awake? And, you know, Nancy, when he sees her at the end, how has she managed to stay awake this whole time? How many days has it been? And what if he really is just faking it?
she's taking the speed.
But he's decided out of his own an instinct to survive to go ahead and point her out so it doesn't blow his cover.
Oh, shit.
So that he can still hide and still watch her from afar because of his obsession love for her.
You're flipping the whole ending of the movie,
Yeah.
Jonathan.
Boom, son.
Damn, dude.
Boom.
Oh my! But this movie, that's the cool thing about this movie is it makes you think so much. It's
Yes.
it's not just like here's a horror movie, here's aliens. It does make you think a lot, and I feel like I have notes. I feel like that was something that I wrote down where I was like, it's like, it does make you think, and that I didn't even think about that. Like,
No.
It didn't come to mind until you guys started saying everything you guys started saying.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, well, what if?
That's
In
why I
my
love the
brain,
conversation.
yeah, it's
Well,
so cool. How
I scored this at
everybody-
a 2, but now I have to change my mind because you guys
Jonathan,
brought some really good
change it.
points. So I'm kicking it up to a 3. I'm going to meet up with Evan on that.
yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm changing your score right now. 3. 3 it is.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
all for.
Dig
Okay,
it.
I'll just say it now. This is my second favorite movie that we've done for 13 Nights of Halloween. So I'm all for changing the score and the higher. Right now, it's behind Cronenberg's The Fly for me. So The Fly is so far the top, but we still have the original Black Christmas to get to. So
Yeah, see, I
Just
have
see
a
how that goes.
question
yeah,
about, because this was something I didn't understand. I want to know all of your takes on this. When they're falling asleep and they start like flaking over and stuff, it's like
disgusting.
Yeah, but how
I
is
love
this? What is like that to me is what didn't make sense because they're like don't fall, and it was very like I kept thinking of like Freddy Krueger, like don't fall asleep. But,
Yeah.
Well, it makes you wonder, how do they make that connection to absorb who they
Yeah,
are?
and
Because
then-
doesn't look like there's any physical contact that you ever see, aside from them maybe touching the plant at one point.
Mm-hmm.
If
So
they actually
there
touch the
is-
flower, that might be the DNA extraction part of it. I don't know.
There is something I love about how vague this movie keeps all of that. So, because I feel like if it had been over explained to us, they would know way too much about what's going on already, and we don't need it. So, I kind of love the vagueness of it all. But yes, so you notice those little spider webby tendrils touch Sutherland's character before it takes over. But then there's
Goldblum,
also that scene with Goldblum when he lays down and then the body next to it, which they describe as being pretty nondescript. It's formless to that point. It doesn't have any distinguishing features. And then it starts to look like Goldblum. So I definitely think it's a proximity thing. I also noticed throughout, I was going to get into this on direction, and because I think it's brilliant. Throughout the film, the garbage man is seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about that too. You see all the dust that comes out of from the bodies that are broken down.
Yes.
So they're taking away the bodies that was something I'm like, why do they crumble?
They're like dried husks. They're taking the
suck
dried
the life
husks.
You're a raisin. You're a raisin.
Basically. And so you'll notice throughout the film that, like, at the first time watching it, I joked with my wife, like, can you imagine living back then when you had to take your trash out to the trash man? And then second time I watched it, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's a pod person. That's why he's taking the trash out.
That just made me realize when Elizabeth's boyfriend to be weird taking out the garbage. Now I get it.
He was taking his body out.
I was him dumping his old body.
That scene is what woke me up to it. Woke me up. He fell asleep in the bed with that plant next to him. And then the next scene, we see her wake up and roll over, and he's cleaning up the floor.
Glass and everything.
Takes it out to the trash.
Oh, yeah.
So he's cleaning up the husk.
Glass, all of it.
He's cleaning up the husk of who he was because he's now a pod person, and he takes it out to the trash. The trash man is already a pod person, and you see that trash man pop up again and again and again throughout the film. It's brilliant.
Every time.
What's
almost
crazy?
in every other scene.
Yeah. What's crazy though too is that, like, it's kind of like they knew to go for the cops and the garbage people, and like it shows you that they are in a way like smarter life
intelligent
form. Intelligent, that they knew to do that to keep because that's what would fuck us over, right? Like
when Matthew's calling in, all the times he's trying to call in, he keeps getting gaslit and redirected and everything because everybody higher up already knows what the deal is, and so they're just trying to shortchange him left and right.
How about the scene that gave me
shit out of him?
Straight chills down my spine when he calls 911 about 4 bodies in his backyard, and they say his name, and he's like, I didn't give you my name. How do you know who I am? I'm like, oh, so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So good. We got sidetracked. We were talking about characters, right?
I think we had. Wait, I don't
were
think
we all done?
Yeah, we all gave scores. I think
we all gave characters. Okay, so then we'll get to some more of that. But the music and sound design that accompanies this. So this is one. This music, I think, is ahead of its time, and I use the word music lightly because there's not really much identifiable music in this film. It is truly sound design to make you uncomfortable. And I love that. And I've seen it echoed in the decades since in a lot of movies where it's just kind of this soundscape that's meant to unsettle. And this movie, going back and watching it and thinking about it, I can't think of a movie pre-1978. Can't say that I've seen all that many of them, to be fair, but can't think of one.
To be fair.
Yeah. Pre this one that truly just made unsettling noises to put you into the moment. And on top of that, it's also just the dialogue sounds sharp and good. The pod people sounds like the movie sounds fantastic. So ultimately, I don't have a lot to say about the music because I don't think there's a real identifiable, strong Jaws theme to accompany the pod people. But I think this movie is extremely successful at creating this atmospheric sound that unsettles you. And I think that is to be praised. I also think it uses silence beautifully to just have no sound and to make you feel isolated and alone. So I praise it for that. I don't have a whole lot more else to say in this category unless someone else does.
Yeah, I think I rated it a 3 with sound because I can't do. Like if you were like, can you do and like sing but like, you can't
opening.
like be like da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, or like any of the classic movies that if you asked me to do, I could give you that soundtrack. So that's where I was like, okay, I can't even think of what like the theme music was.
Right.
But as far as like sounds, as knowing that like screeching where they find somebody who's human, like that's where I think the sound comes in. And like you said, silence too. And silence to me sometimes is like, like creepier more so than music.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I went through with it as well. It's got good ambiance. Just the subtle sounds that you hear when you hear them. It's like, oh, okay, shit, I didn't catch that. And then you're hearing it, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is getting me a little bit. And I mean, it's an old movie. Everybody's seen it, I'm sure, except for me and Jonathan, apparently. But
At least we saw it finally.
But off my first watch, I was able to catch a little bit of it, and when I caught it, I was like, "Oh shit!" Okay, well, that gets you. And then the sounds, like the special effects sounds and stuff like that. The
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Juices out of the
Yeah.
people. It's like, oh man, that makes me feel kind of gooey.
The pod people sound gross.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah.
let's see. Like you were saying, Evan, the ambiance, I definitely feel that. It's a good word. There are a lot of like those like repeating low tones of synth stuff, along with some of the sections of the horns they play. They really help heighten some of those tense situations, and I felt that a lot. Yeah, I really dug that pretty hard. And then the moments where you talk about Strawberry, where it's like the quietness of certain things, like when what's his face, Elizabeth's boyfriend, is like sitting there, he's watching a game, which normally people would have a TV loud, lots of sound going on, but no, he's always with the headphones and everything. That kind of restriction of sound as part of the scene, I think, is really cool.
Did you see where he was watching the clocks?
That was weird. He wasn't watching basketball that time. After he changed, he was sitting there watching like the spinning dials or something going by on the TV.
It was literally like clocks, but
power meters or something.
I was like, why is he watching clocks?
Yeah, it was so weird.
I also think the way they show his shift, we didn't bring it up earlier, but I think it's so fascinating. When you go back and rewatch, and like your first scene of him is him watching the game with the headphones on, and how he just like grabs her onto his lap and starts making out with her, and he's so animated. And then when he's taken over, it's gone, and he's just very stoic and still. It's so. The way I describe it is not subtle. The way it's done in the film is very subtle because it's fast. Yeah. And I think it's so good. But yeah, go ahead.
I was also a big fan of how when they're at the port towards the end, they hear the bagpipes playing from the ship. And he's like, oh, there's hope, and then running over and then finding out it's just a radio station that they changed on the boat. Totally killing his hopes, realizing that it's all screwed.
Well, that
was wonderful.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was like earlier when she was saying, oh, when you play plants music, I think it was Nancy in like the mud bath area, right? She's like, when you play plants music, like they like it helps them grow or whatever. So they took that and they ran with that too, where it's like, oh, the music, the plants like the music, right?
Look at that.
Was it music for the plants, or was it music to trick?
I think they were playing it for the plants. I feel like because that was like a thing that all of a sudden was like known that, oh, plants like music. I feel like they were playing it because they were loading all the pods onto there, right? They didn't know he was there. They would have been screaming at him. So they were playing it to the pods. That's my take on it.
You're making me want to change my score for the script.
Yeah.
But overall, I enjoyed what I was hearing. It did a lot for me. So along with all that, I give it a 4.
I was a 4 as well.
And I really like the sound of the crunch when the dude puts his little garden hoe into his doppelganger's skull, crushes it. That sound bit going in there, you know. And even at the cleaners, the Asian cleaners, like when the guy's first like, it's not my wife, and he hits the thing, and the whole he's a big air blast for that coat and everything, whatever it was.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was neat.
Damn.
Did we give our scores for music and sound design? I was a 4.
I was a 4.
I was a 3.
I think I was a 3, and I think I kind of felt wavered on it, right?
Get us
I don't know.
changed.
We're open to adjustments. We're totally fine with it.
I still want to give it a 3 just because I feel like I can't do the song.
That's fair.
Yep.
That's all right.
That is my line between 5 and 4. If I can do it, it's a 5. If I can't, it's a 4. But that's fair.
Yeah.
So on to, we've already mentioned it multiple times because it deserves it. The special effects for this film.
Oh yeah.
From the opening shots, I'm pretty sure, I didn't do research on this, I'm winging it on this part. Most of the special effects in this film are filmed in reverse.
Yeah, I think so. You can kind of tell.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it looks so good though. We get the opening shot, we get like these spider web tendrils that reach across a plant. And yeah, if you know anything about special effects, you can guess that it's filmed in reverse and they're just pulling it back inside. But it looks so good. It looks flawless. And even when these pod people are popping out of the plants, when there's that person, it's clearly a person. I don't believe it's puppetry. It's clearly a person wrapped in whatever, pops out at the it's the end of the second act. It's the best scene in the film. It's one of the best scenes in the film.
It reminds me of the cotton candy covering from Attack of the Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yep.
That weird kind of fibrous, yet almost skin tone-ish, reddish, bloody-ish kind of skin set. As you see it pulsing out of the flowers before the petals fall off.
It's so good.
Little pulsing.
Like,
so good.
The one that is Donald Sutherland, Matthew. When Matthews comes out and it starts out looking like a freaking baby thing, and then eventually turns into
It had the slitted alien eyes on it too.
Yes. I was like, it was so, and it looked real. I don't know. I think especially for the time, I think now we're so okay, I can see this is reverse. I could see that.
Right.
But I think if we sat there and watched it in, 1978, we would have been like, holy shit, dude. This is, now that we know so much, we can point it out. But even we can point things out, it holds up and looks, it's like Jurassic Park. It holds up. It looks good.
Even I'm sitting there today and going I can tell it's filmed in reverse, but I'm like, holy shit, this looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It looks so good. I'm just amazed. Even when he goes to smash the head in, that scene, there's so many layers to that scene that I love. When he goes to smash her first. Yeah, he goes to Elizabeth first and he looks at her and he can't do it. And so he goes and he looks at the one that's starting to look like him and he just takes that rake to his head. And I even love that it doesn't react like a human body.
Yeah.
It just kind of crumples like it's hollow inside. And I don't think that's a limitation of the special effects. I don't think that's a limitation of the time period. I think that is fully intentional because it is a hollow replica of him. And so when he smashes it, it's just filled with goo inside. But that looks so good. So good. The 5 to me, a 5 on categories means it's timeless. It looks amazing 50 years later. This movie, almost 50 years later, looks amazing. It looks so good. So this one is one that was easily a 5 for me. Easily.
Yeah, when you put it into perspective that it's like 50 years, it makes it even more like, holy shit. I rated it a 4 just because I still feel like 5 is kind of like one of those things it's hard to give out.
It should
You
be.
know,
That's fair.
it's hard to give out. But you know what, honestly, because there wasn't, even though the head smash, when you look at it, you're like, okay, I can tell it's like a fake head smash. It still looks good 50 years later. Like, if I didn't know any better and I watched this when it came out, I probably would have been like, oh, fuck, dude. Like, so, I mean, I want, can I give it like a 4.5?
You can give it a 4.5.
Okay, I want to give it, because I feel like 5 is like, I don't know, 5 is like you gotta really
shouting it from the mountaintop.
yeah. But I mean, like, I think from the beginning I talked about the practical effects on this. But I like that because I hate CGI. So
I'm right there with you.
it really was. This was really a good. It's just enjoyable to watch, because I hate when effects like that take you out of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like the weird wispy moving tendril things, like when they're in the bath, when Jeff Goldblum's getting copied. Not a special effect, but I could have done without the muddy old man ass coming out of the tub.
You get full scrotum. You didn't notice
Oh,
that?
yeah, I saw bottom scrot hanging out too, like muddy scrot, and I'm like, balls. I don't want to see that.
It looked like diarrhea. I was like,
For a big boy just sitting in it.
and they can't clean it. They don't.
He's like, give me a towel. Yeah, let me cover that shit up, please. Please cover that shit up, bro. But yeah, like this, like seeing like the texture of the skin as his body's laid out there, you know, even with like the trickle from the nose blood from the copy once he finally wakes up and Nancy's like freaking out. It was kind of cool because he has that reaction. He's just like, oh no, like cause it touches him. He's like, oh, freaking out and shit. There was there's some mild effects, but they're fun. But as you saw, it seems kind of typical for the time. So I mean, I wasn't like super impressed or anything, but it's still, like Strawberry was saying, it was pretty cool. The editing with some of the sequences and some of the long shots they had there, and like the perspectives and cutting back and forth, they did pretty good job with a lot of that. But there was a little too much for my taste, but still pretty cool.
Too much of what?
A lot of fast transitions.
Oh, okay. See,
there's more than a few places where there's a lot of fast transition, and that kind of bugs me.
Okay,
a little bit,
gotcha.
But overall, I gave it a 3.
Okay.
For the effects, for like
the editing, special effects,
editing and effects. So you're taking quite a bit of the editing into
a 3.
A little more scrutiny.
Are you sure? 3?
Am I supposed to punt the piece of paper through the goalposts?
No, that's what.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
No, that's what you feel.
Maybe 3.5. Maybe 3.5.
Okay.
I'll adjust if that's your official. If that's what you believe.
Yeah.
Think about that fucking sick looking baby thing coming out, and it's an adult size baby thing coming out.
Adult size baby. That's the one that gets me. It was an adult size baby.
Okay, 4. I'll go 4.
It's pretty sick, dude.
I'll go 4.
Like, if I was a part of a movie and those were the special effects, I'd be like, hell yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, well, exactly. If an indie film today released a special effect that looked as good as that, it'd be legit. That'd be serious. That'd be worth watching. Yeah.
Too legit to quit.
Too legit to quit. Okay.
And then what were your thoughts on that?
I think I gave it a 4. I'm going to go ahead and bump that up to a 5, though.
Schnitzel.
Just kind of sitting, as I was watching it the first time, and it was like, okay, this is looking good. But then watching it today, I was like, man, I'm seeing things that I didn't catch the first time. You're seeing the goo come out of the plants along with these humans, and you're just like,
yes.
Are these aliens? And you're like, oh, fuck, that's gross looking. That's
so slippery.
And then you've got
jelly.
And then you've got what's his name? Jeff Goldblum in his little cocoon thing, and when those eyes open, and his eyes are closed.
Yeah.
But then when his eyes open, the eyes close right back down, and it's like, man, that was weird. How'd that happen? And then, of course, out of nowhere, body's gone. I know how it happened because
I think they took it because the
Leonard
window was
Nimoy-
open.
Yeah, Leonard
and then-
Nimoy, when he walked in there, he shifted him out the window because that's when they said,
That gaslighting
"Did this
motherfucker.
window get opened?" Leonard Nimoy done shipped that sumbitch right on out.
Spock the whole time is out here gaslighting everybody.
The fucking alien
Spock was
out there
gaslighting,
supporting other
man.
aliens. What a dick.
He brought it from space.
Spotlighting more so than he would to Uhura in Star Trek.
The whole time, weren't you like, why are they listening to him? Like, why are they going to him for
He's supposed to be the expert.
This is like, so he's like a psychologist, a like really famous one who's written a bunch of books and stuff. And
I was immediately suspicious in his first
Jeff Goldblum
scene.
was all pissy about him and shit.
Yes,
You know?
Yeah.
I love Jeff in that scene.
He's that one guy that everybody, all the super huge Christians listen to, Joel Osteen. He's the Joel Osteen.
He's got the prosperity psychology going on.
Yeah.
I just loved. I'm immediately suspicious in that opening scene with him when that lady is like, "My husband's not. It's not him," and he's like, "Are you sure?" He's gaslighting her the whole time. Like, maybe it's you. Like,
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, man, he is gaslighting so hard. God.
It's a weird side thing, but does anyone else understand what the fuck was going on with Leonard Nimoy and his little hand cover thingy?
No.
Like,
That was
what the fuck was that about?
Okay, so
Just
yes,
to look cool.
Passion.
It's like, yeah, bro.
Evan,
Partial glove.
you have an answer for this?
He's gonna go out and catch a falcon in a minute.
Yeah, right?
Okay, so that was
Catch
one.
these birds.
That's a random. Now that you mentioned it, I do know.
Yeah, Leonard Nimoy.
I do know what was going on with that. So it was Leonard Nimoy's choice to make. Okay, it's not a good choice, but it was his to make his character a little bit more distinctive because he had a friend who had a burn on their hand, and they wore something similar like that to cover the burn, to cover the scar. And that gave Leonard the idea to have his character do that just so it would stick in your memory like it did.
It did. And it fucking did, dude.
Yep. So,
Crafty Nimoy.
Pretty clever, but I still have no idea why the heck he did that. So
At first, I thought it was driving gloves. I was like, where the hell's he
Yeah,
driving
right.
off?
No, he's just trying to look cool. He's like, I'm trying to be like post-apocalyptic.
I just got this leather flap on my
Ready for
arm.
the end of the world because I'm helping cause it. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You know what? When I first saw this movie, I didn't even realize this is like a kind of over here thought. I didn't realize that Jeff Goldblum was Jeff Goldblum because of how young he looks.
Yes, he's a baby. He's a
I
baby.
didn't know. I did not know. And then I think later on it was something where I was like, Jeff Goldblum, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I was like, that was Jeff Goldblum. Like, I don't think I knew the whole time the first time I saw it because he looks so different. Yeah, cut.
So I was just looking. Jeff Goldblum was about. So this movie was released in '78, and Jeff Goldblum was born in '52. So he was 26.
Wow.
If my math is correct. He was 26 at the time of his film.
What was his first movie? Do we know? Can we look? I gotta Google. What?
This was one of his first films. He had done some TV before that. But as far as films go, there was nothing really bigger than this. He had played, so prior to this, I can list him because there's not that many. He was Remember My Name. He played Mr. Nudd. Thank God It's Friday, Tony, Annie Hall, Lacey Party Guest. So if that tells you anything, he was playing.
Annie Hall. He was kind of like a background actor.
Yes.
So
exactly.
like it would be like an uncredited almost thing.
Almost.
Now
He
for
was
somebody
in-
who didn't have a name, right?
Yes. He was in an episode of Starsky and Hutch. He was in an episode of the Blue Knight TV series from the 70s. He played Hood number 3 in St. Ives. So like there was not a lot. He played the TV series Columbo, which I still love to watch Columbo, and Donald Sutherland's character reminded me a lot of Columbo. he played Protester in an episode. So he didn't do a whole lot that you would know by name until this movie. And this movie is one of those that started to put him into those named roles.
Yeah.
And it gradually grew. The Fly was a major breakout for him. He was in Transylvania 6500 before that. But then we all know Jurassic Park was the one that made him like a household name.
Yeah.
So he had a long trajectory of doing a lot of work, doing it really well, and earning his reputation for sure. So I love Jeff Goldblum. I mean, this is the second movie in a row with Jeff Goldblum. So
I don't want to like take over and be like, hey, this is blah, 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 blah. But so recently I've been acting and doing a bunch of different things. And I had some background work. I've had my first speaking role. Ooh. But it's interesting, like, once you start acting and watching movies, like, now that I've had, like, background experience, I've had, like, kind of, like, a side character experience, and I've had a speaking role. So when you come at it, like, watching, knowing how that all, like, comes to play, now when I watch movies, I'm like, how are they acting? And I have to say, like, the acting even holds up in this movie. Like, the acting is not bad. Like, because a lot of movies that you watch from, like, the 80s and the 90s is so, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's very, like, yeah, fuck you. I don't know. But there was something about this movie that was still so genuine. And it goes back to even when Donald Sutherland is like, hey, do that thing with your eyes. And like, I brought it up before, but there's something just so genuine about their acting. And even now seeing things and watching it from this perspective, I'm like, the acting is still really good.
So you skipped a category, but that's fine. We're going to go right into the acting, and then we'll go back to the script because your transition so well. Let's talk about the acting because yes, that eye scene to me was so good. I'm watching that from a script perspective and from an acting perspective. I loved how genuine that scene felt. I'm watching it like, I believe these two have been friends for 20 years. You know, I believe that this is a regular thing. And just the way he tells her, do that thing with your eyes. And he's like, see, you're not crazy. I'm like, that is fucking adorable. I love it. It just felt real. It was so good. And I think that's a reflection of a lot of the way, you know, we kind of talked about, like, I'm not exactly sure what was going on between the two of them.
Yeah.
But overall, it doesn't give me romance. Overall, it gives me a long-term, very close friendship. These two
it's almost a deeper connection.
These two understand each other on a deeper level. I never got the impression that he was jealous of the boyfriend and wanted the boyfriend out of the picture. I always got the impression that he was there for her, period. And whether it's a wholesome kind of romance that we don't see, like he's not jealous at all, but he loves her deeply, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it is very rooted in friendship and not in lust, for lack of better term. You know, it is truly about their connection. And I think these two show it so well, even when he goes in and she is becoming the pod person and he like rescues her from the situation and sneaks her out of the house. And then she wakes up in the car with him. And there's just that softness to this kind of tense, terrifying moment that they're sharing. And even we mentioned their kiss earlier and the character development. Like I said, I didn't take that as a romantic, like, oh, this is the culmination of our feelings. I took it almost as like, this is the end. You know, we've been through a lot together and I appreciate you. And I don't know what the next 24 hours are going to hold. You know, that is all in the way they portray it. And it is so good. I cannot praise the acting in this film quite enough. Like you said, there is just something very natural and real about it. And to go into the darker side, the scene that sticks with me probably more than any other. There are 3 key scenes in this film that stand out in my mind. The first one is when they're driving in that car and having a great conversation that's totally on the script, and that guy bangs on the windshield and says they're coming, they're invading, and then you see that guy dead like 30 seconds later. That scene and the way it's just like it escalates the unease through them watching it and like, oh shit, this is getting real.
Yeah, because they acted that
So
out
good.
very well too. Like they didn't overact it. It was like she was like, "Oh my god!" Like like
Yeah.
if you were to see a dead body, and he's like, he had that feeling like we don't know what's going on yet. Like I'm gonna keep driving. Like there was never like that moment where it was like, oh, they never overacted, in my opinion, in this movie.
Fun fact, the guy who ran up to freaking at them on the car and like banging on the windshield windows is actor Kevin McCarthy, who actually played Dr. Bennell in the original.
Hey, there we
Ooh.
go.
Recurring actor within the chain again, like with Black Christmas. Yeah, and that guy's been in all kinds of stuff, and he's been a pretty cool actor too. So like that's one of those weird bit parts that he just kind of pops into there.
Another connection that we'll find out again in 6 days when we talk about the original film. I love it.
Kevin McCarthy. Is that
Yeah.
what you Okay.
Yeah, he's usually played like a lot of scumbag asshole roles in a lot of films, but like he's awesome at it.
Yeah, just wait till you get to see the first one.
Okay.
I have actually never seen the first one, so
Yeah, we're on the same page.
I saw the first one so back when, this ages me just a little bit, when Signs came out.
okay.
So Signs came out, and that was a big deal because I was in high school, and so it was a great film.
You Shyamalan fan, you.
But watching that one, I saw a lot of people talk about how Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of the best sci-fi horror movies ever. And if you like Signs, you need to watch these. And so I went back and watched the original, but I probably have not seen it since high school. So I remember only
What year
the
in high school were you?
I graduated in 08.
08?
Yep.
How old are you?
I'm 34.
Oh, okay.
Class of 2002.
Yeah, I 04.
Okay.
I thought you were.
Yeah.
I was like, when you said that, I was like, is he that much older than me? Because it came out in 2002.
Oh, so it would have been when I was in junior high.
Yeah, because I'm like, damn, I was like 12 or 13. So I was like, is he
Okay.
that much older than me?
Nope. So I was off. It was in junior high.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
I remember watching it.
Yeah, it was pretty iconic for
Yeah.
me growing up. It was.
That tree scene. Whew.
Oh, I remember the one of Joaquin Phoenix in the closet watching the news footage. That messed me up.
That was scary. It was the Signs is not
Signs
to
is a
jump
good
to a
film.
whole
Yeah.
different movie. I mean, it's still aliens, right? Oh, Signs is still scary.
So, roping it back to the acting. I was a 5 on the acting. I thought these performances are genuinely flawless. I cannot find a moment that I'm like, you know what? Could have stepped it up. Can't do it. Not there. I'm amazed. From Donald Sutherland at the beginning being like, this is a rat turd, to
Yeah. It's a caper.
Eat it.
It's keep it. Rat turd. No, it's so good. And then even like he's got this bubbly enthusiasm at the beginning that generally like dissipates throughout the film and becomes bleaker. And it's so good. Jeff Goldblum is fantastic as always. I cannot tell you when he's not fantastic. But even, man, yeah, I'm just like, there's not a rough performance. Brooke Adams as Elizabeth is so good the whole film, as is Veronica Cartwright as Nancy Belichick. They're just honestly, if I was to pick somebody, Leonard Nimoy is the weakest. And even then, he's not weak. He's still great. So it's a 5 for me on the acting. I cannot knock anybody on the acting. And, if I was to say that the acting, a 5 means they should be nominated for an award, I would nominate just about any of these performances for supporting actor or lead actor in a film. I think they are that good. They are fantastic. 5 for me.
That's some heavy praise. Okay.
I told you this is like my second favorite movie of our list. I love this film.
At the beginning, I almost just from some of the side angles, I almost thought that Brooke Adams was Margot Kidder.
Yes. No, you're
I straight up thought it was Margot Kidder at the start. I was like, wait, no, that's not her. It's somebody else. Okay. And I was like, oh yeah, this is from the other movie. The acting though, man, it's cool for what it was. I mean, I thought some parts were kind of hokey.
Like what parts?
You beat me to it. I was going to ask, what parts hokey?
Specifically, give me a part.
When we're in the car, when Kevin McCarthy comes running up on the car, I thought they were acting way too chill for what was going on. Me as a guy, I would have been a little bit more like, hey, get off my car, back the fuck up, before I have to come out there, and he was just Donald Sutherland was just so passive about it.
But that's not his character. His character is kind of
just calm. And he was concerned more so for Elizabeth at the time than he was about his car.
Well, even the chefs earlier threw something at his windshield and cracked it, and the dude just sat there.
He just drove away.
Well, he can't prove anything. There's no cameras, nobody saw it, so he can do shit about it.
Yeah, but another guy would have been like, "Hey, fuck you, let's fight. You threw that. I know you threw that shit at my window. Let's go." Where Donald Sutherland in this movie was just like, what he got on the phone, he's like, "They threw some shit at my window. Like, here we go." So, he actually, he kind of is very calm if you think about it. But I get what you're saying. You would think.
I mean, it was stuff like that kind of annoyed me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But otherwise, I mean, it just was. I didn't think it was anything too over the top. I mean, a lot of it was just tension and running and trying to figure out your next move versus the more intense personal moments where they're being gaslit and Leonard Nimoy is just being like, well, just trying to psychology the shit out of them, Aside from that, though, I mean, I think a 3 is okay. I think it's good for me.
Okay.
Are you coming at it as a point where you feel like most actors probably could have played that part because they are just kind of reacting to something that's almost easy to react to?
I guess. I mean, it just didn't. At least some of the reactions were a little lackluster for me.
Yeah.
Coming out here with some good questions, man.
Firing them out. Hell yeah.
She's putting you under the microscope.
No, this is me as getting into acting, wondering
Well, I would have expected to see more random people freaking out than just the one other lady.
Yeah.
Because I mean, depending on how fast this transitions go with them taking over, I would have expected to see just a lot more of that varied reaction to people being like, what's going on here? What the hell? Blah, blah, blah. And why, when they're passing, all those the little porn vendor shop, whatever's on that one strip where they're trying to get away, why haven't those people been taken over yet? Where's the injection into that? Why are they still untouched? It's weird in that aspect.
I am taking notes as we go to address this when we get to directing.
So you are speaking more of a whole acting perspective, the people in the background and the extras and the background actors and just everybody. If this show was happening to us, we really would be freaking the fuck out and not keeping any kind of cool, right?
Right. I mean, there's there's still too much composure for the fact that this massive takeover going over. I would have liked to have seen a little more expressiveness from a lot of the main characters. I said, even in all that, Donald Sutherland was still trying to act cool as a cucumber through the whole fucking thing. Even when he's being chased down at the warehouse at the dock and he's just hacking shit and they're trying to grab at him. He does this mild, slide out the window, roll down off the truck wannabe parkour thing, running off. And it's like, what the hell, man? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
how can you still be so composed and so chill and nominal through all of that? And I don't know. That just kind of bothered me.
I get it. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
fair.
a good perspective.
I gave the acting a 5 myself. Just the way, Donald Sutherland has gone, from the zany right off the beginning of talking super fast. Hey, you're going to do this. We're going to do this. Everything's going to be great. Da, 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 da. I'll see you at 7:30 in the morning. We're going to be, let's go. I think as the movie progressed, Donald as he, didn't react so much to everything. I think it was more along the lines of to keep his friends calm as he can. When they're in there asking Leonard Nimoy so many questions, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna step outside. They're asking a bunch of questions. I don't want to get involved with this. I'm just gonna step outside, let them talk to him. Nimoy's acting was good. He was ominous. He got me stressed out just because of all the gaslighting that he did constantly throughout the movie. It was like, man, you seem like a skeezy fuckbag, and I don't like you, but I'll deal with it. Elizabeth did great all the way through it. She had the right amount of emotion to not be so over dramatic of what you would normally see from a 78 movie where the woman is normally kind of like ditzy.
And like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
she snapped her ankle, dropping down off that high heel. It was like, come on, man.
She is never the damsel in distress.
no. Yeah, because if I broke my ankle at that point, I'd be like, ah! But when you're in that situation where like you got to keep going, like they're gonna get you. She handled it very well, and she knew.
She had a movie where she was an actual damsel in distress, called Shockwaves. It was a Nazi zombie movie. I think around the same time, maybe 78, something like that. But she was a damsel in distress there, and she overacted in that movie. But in this movie, she was right on point. And I don't know if that's maybe just the direction that the director was saying, don't go too hard, but don't go too easy either. Overall, Nancy acting the way she did, and then of course Jeff Goldblum was the mouth, as he always is.
Yeah.
He's gonna get what he wants to say out, and say it really fast. And you're like, oh, damn it, I gotta put my Jeff Goldblum ears on. What do you say?
Acting somewhat neurotic like he normally would.
Yep.
Yes.
Got to be prepared.
But yeah, overall, I didn't have a problem with any of the acting. And as for what you said about the porn stores and the nudie shops, it made me wonder that somebody wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm not yet an alien. Let me go into this nudie shop. And then they get you in the nudie shop.
It's a trap.
So they're not acting any differently. They're like, hey, get your ass in here. Get your ass in here.
Admiral Akbar, that shit. It's a trap.
Yeah, you're right. That was something that stuck out that I didn't realize you were talking about. That, yeah, it was like, oh, why haven't they been taken over yet?
So they went
I
for
remember
the
that.
police, trashmen, government officials, the infrastructure, and that included the nudie shops. You get them in there because you can.
It seems like they're supposed to be emotionless, so you don't think about it. Because they talk about removing emotions and like love and hate and la la la. But Elizabeth, Brooke Adams definitely was the best performer of the film.
Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. You talked about the emotions, and that leads back. We'll jump back to the script. Before we jump into the next category, I want to tell you a little bit about Zencastr. When I was preparing for our 13 Nights of Halloween series, I was really searching for a way to streamline the process. I wanted a professional-looking setup to invite our guests to. I wanted quality audio and video recording, and I wanted the easiest way to release the episodes to as broad of an audience as possible. This is how I landed on Zencastr.
It is now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Just log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. And speaking of audio quality, have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you are thinking of starting your own podcast or just want to streamline what you are already doing, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code AVERAGECUSTOMER and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. That's average customer, one word. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So let's dive into the next category.
So we were talking about the script. Jonathan specifically mentioned I believe it was Jonathan, the lack of emotion. Was that it? Something about that?
Emotional reaction more with like Donald Sutherland and then certain aspects of people in the crowd.
Yeah. So there is this crazy, like, it's so subtle. It's so good. I love it in the script. When it's towards the end of the film, which I have my issues with the end of the film, where'd it go?
Back scratcher!
Yeah.
Butt scratcher!
So it is Donald Sutherland and Elizabeth. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm brain farting.
Matthew and Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's Matthew and Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
But Elizabeth says to Leonard Nimoy's character in the scene, she goes, "I hate you." And Kibner goes, "There's no need for hate now. Pause or love." And I'm like, damn, that is subtle and that is dirty and that is so good. Like I love that, just like touching on the lack of emotion and how there's no need for it now. Whether it be hate, a negative emotion, or love, a positive emotion, there's just no need for emotion. The future doesn't need it. And it's just it is 2 words.
Complacency for everyone.
Yes, it is 2 words. And man, so this script is one that is not like, we've had movies in 13 Nights of Halloween so far. I mean, this is night 5, so the 4 other movies where we can go through and we can pick out lines that are either laughably bad or just incredible lines that I would have tattooed somewhere on my body. You know, those are the 2 options that we've had. This movie is so unique in the fact that it has neither.
Yeah. Yeah.
This movie does not have iconic lines that stand out as being brilliant.
Mm-mm.
What this movie is brilliantly written. It is an intelligently written sci-fi thriller that it does not over-explain anything to you. It does not under-explain anything to you. It does not give you beautifully poetic, macabre lines. It gives you bleak, realistic writing. And I love it for that. Like, we talked about how a lot of the character interactions just feel genuine. And I think that is because the dialogue is somehow very real. It is very genuine. It's not, I don't feel like I'm going for a quotable moment here. I feel like I'm going for a moment of humans connecting.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for a movie that is able to accomplish that so well without, like, the tagline for a poster isn't really here. Like, there's good lines in this movie for sure, but there's not one line like The Fly from last night had fantastic quotable lines. This movie is not, it's not that. It's just fantastically written from top to bottom. It is one of those movies that is truly unique in the way it's written. I can't really tell you, like, to tell you why a line is brilliant, you have to explain the entire scene. And that to me is a quality of the writing. You know, that it is not just, hey, that line's brilliant. It is like, this is why it's good. Because of everything that comes before it and everything that comes after it that is so well thought out. I mean, just a small example is we mentioned the dry cleaner. You know, it's just a small throwaway scene if you're not paying attention, but then it is such a chilling and unnerving scene. Or we keep going back to that scene about the eyes. That is just a beautiful moment of connection that is very real. You know, there are so many of those that make this a standout in the script for me. I truly, truly love this script. Like I said, I have my complaints about this movie. I'm holding back. I'm gonna save them for my final thoughts. Save them for the final thoughts. But overall, I think this script is fantastic. I gave the script a 5. I think the script is brilliant. Honestly, I think it's so good.
I think I gave the script a 4, if I'm not mistaken. It's not that I had any problems necessarily with it. You know, there were parts that I'd say could be cut out, but really, in reality, at the end of the day, if you cut any of it out, it just doesn't make the movie. You know, everything is where it should be in place to make the movie that it is. You know, you take something out here, you're going to miss something out here. And it's like, nah. I think the way that everything was written, the way that they all acted it all out, the looks that they gave each other the whole time. I mean, it was good. I say a 4. I could bump it up. 4.5.
4.5? I'll do it.
Fuck it, I'll give it a 4.75
Yeah.
if I can give it that.
Did you say 4.5?
I want to say a 5. I do.
4 3/4.
Reserve my 5s for a little bit.
Okay.
I don't want to just start handing out 5s like I'm a $5 slut or something like that. Here's a 5. You get a 5.
This is 13 Nights of Halloween. I'm feeling good. I'm handing out 5s when I feel like it.
I think I gave it a 4, and I think it's for that reason where it's like everything is great, everything is good, but there is no memorable lines, nothing that you would like quote or, you know what I mean? But it's solid. It's just solid.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't anything that was really memorable about any of the dialogue really with the script. You know, I mean, Jeff Goldblum going off with his neuroses while, you know, Donald Sutherland's on the phone trying to get a hold of somebody at the party while Leonard Nimoy's gaslighting the shit out of people. You know, it's a lot of jumble and all that, but the rest of it, you know, it's very minimal, but to the point, but nothing that's really going to stick in my brain too hard. So I gave it a 3.
Okay, Jonathan. Okay.
I'm the pooper of the party. I pooped it.
This is one of the movies to me that I'm going to transition into directing now. That the two of these, the script and the direction, go hand in hand. More so than a lot of movies. I mean, yeah, obviously the director's working off the script, but there's a lot of stuff that was probably documented in the script that was not spoken. So one of the things I love early on in the film, we mentioned we have at the beginning. So moving into the direction category, we have those plant things at the beginning. Okay. With those spider webbing tendrils across, so on. We get to Donald Sutherland and he's cutting out newspaper clippings Okay, did anybody notice what the newspaper clipping said?
I did not catch
It
what
did.
was on
It
it.
said something about like the pop. Didn't it say something about kind of what was going on in the movie?
Yes. So he's cutting out, and
Yeah.
he wasn't cutting out that story. He was cutting out a different story. But the article he's cutting around says like strange spider webs appear overnight across the area. And that is referring to the pod thing. And that is such a subtle detail that it is A, brilliant of the director to make sure it makes it into the final cut. It's also B, most likely documented in the script to make sure that that connects things. So that is an area that I was like, damn, that's good. So you also mentioned earlier scenes about expecting people to react to, changes. And on my third rewatch of this movie, even as early as him coming back with the rat turd story and her meeting him in the health department, if you watch in the background, some of those characters are acting like pod people.
Yeah.
So there is, as early as that, the next day after everything, you start to notice that some of the background characters are just emotionless and standing there kind of observing, not being quite normal.
Milling around.
As the movie progresses, the number of people acting abnormal changes. And there's so much detail in that background. And we mentioned earlier the trash man who appears throughout the film and is just this subtle thing. There's literally a scene of Leonard Nimoy when he leans on the garbage truck. That's it. That's the only, there's no acknowledgement of it. You don't see the trash man, but Leonard Nimoy leans against it. And it's there because somebody was recently turned into a pod person. And it is so subtle and it progresses throughout the film that I've said it multiple times. I have issues with this film and I'll get there. But the direction is, while I could put some of my issues on the direction, I'm choosing not to in this one because I love the way the first 2/3 of this film play out. The first 2/3 of this film are brilliant. Hands down. I have no issues with the first 2/3 of this film at all. I think it is so good. So for me, the direction from those subtle little details throughout the film, and they keep going all the way throughout. So I'm praising it again, man. And I looked at my score and I said it was a 4, but I'm changing it to a 5 because I'm talking about it. Man, I love it. And Jonathan mentioned some of the quick cuts earlier, and I have to talk about them because I hate quick cuts, but I love long takes. And Kaufman balances those two. And I thought he balanced them really well because we have these beautiful long takes of, one of the ones that I remember is Elizabeth and Matthew walking down the health department hallway. And we have this long take of their conversation and their dialogue. Again, acted great, script is fantastic, but we get a bunch of interactions from outside characters and we follow them down. We follow these other characters without cutting. Fantastic. But then when the tension is elevated, he's cutting quickly. He's making some quick cuts at appropriate moments. And I'm like, man, I love it. I love it. I couldn't tell you another Kaufman film, to be honest. I looked. Apparently, he was hailed as an auteur of the time, and this is the only film I've ever seen on his list. He did The Right Stuff, and he wrote The Right Stuff. He didn't direct it. Let's see. The director, his last movie was Hemingway and Gellhorn. He did Twisted, Quills. There's really nothing on his list of direction that stands out, but he had some skill. I thought he balanced things. There's also just fantastic shots of, there's one of Nimoy and Sutherland talking with that pyramid building from San Francisco in the background, and it splits the scene right down the middle. It's so good. I just thought it was balanced beautifully. There's a lot of great stuff in the direction. So I gave it a 4, and as I'm talking, I convinced myself to bring it up to a 5. So I'm a 5 on the direction. I love this film. I love this film.
Tim,
So.
you film lover, you.
I know.
I'm not
I
sure.
know.
I'm not sure if this really cuts so much to direction, man. It does cut back a bit to the special effects, but like throughout the film, like once you know that something's happening, people are getting taken over. You see the banjo guy and his dog in the park. You see him a couple times, and you're like, okay, when is it going to happen? Is something going to happen to him? What's going to go down? You're waiting to see something happen with the banjo guy, to see him just not play anymore, or just be totally lackluster, just sitting there with the instrument. But no, when later on, towards the end of the film, Matthew and Elizabeth are running away, and the dog comes running up, and the dog has the banjo man's face.
Yes.
It's somehow, in the pod copy, it took both of them and melded into one copy of both of them. Super freaky.
So
I'm sure
good.
that messed with a lot of people when they saw it in the
it's like
film.
Puppy Dog Iced Tea.
Well, that was something that got you thinking too, because you're like, oh, they fell asleep next to each other, or
Yes.
something happened where it mutated, or you know.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And I was like, man, that was super cool of them to have that. It led me on with that expectation of seeing. Well, I was waiting for a reaction with that, and then seeing the banjo man face dog, just like, it totally got me. You know,
Banjo man
and
face
then
dog. I love that.
I don't know what else to call it really. And I like how they alluded to early on in the movie when they've got the plant in the water by the bedside and they fall asleep, and then like they go into that whole like black light purple color on the plant, just kind of giving that ominous feeling of what's to come. You know, I thought it was really cool. Other than that, I always suck about talking about direction. I've said it before and I'll say it many times in the future, but I like some of those long shots, those long takes you were talking about. Especially like when they've got that one where you see Donald Sutherland walking down the street and you see him through the windows of the shop of each section all the way further down, as you see that perspective, you know, of him and all the people that he's around. You know, that was kind of nice.
Yeah. So good.
But I don't know. Like I said, I suck at this topic, but so I gave it a 3.
Okay.
I want to echo, if I may, Tim talking about the long shot of going down that hallway in their department. I don't know if any of you guys caught it, but as they were walking past one of the doors, there was a person behind one of the doors with his hands against the window, and it was shining through. I don't know if y'all caught that shadow. It was the second door, if I'm not mistaken, that they walked past. And at that point, I was like, oh, shit, the invasion is already going on even further than we expected. And that was, right off in the beginning.
Yeah. Very nice. I didn't catch that.
It makes me think back to that Asian guy that she bumps into, that Elizabeth bumps into, just kind of looks at her weird.
Yeah.
As they continue on the hallway, just kind of that weird back glance. What the hell?
Yes, it was right before that is exactly when it happened. But the way that, the direction and everything of how it was going, I was like, man, it could go any which way. Had I not just seen, unfortunately, the 50s version, I might have been like, oh. I mean, of course, we all know what Invasion of the Body Snatchers is, what it's all about.
Yeah.
But the way that they were able to do it, had you have not known anything about it, had you never seen the first one, had you never read the book, it would be like, oh, shit, what's about to happen here?
Yeah.
Is Elizabeth's boyfriend right off in the beginning when he changes, he goes from this horny horn dog to just as calm, stiff, and you're just like, okay. Nice little change up. And then they get around town and all the shit starts going crazy. And it's like, okay. And I don't know. All in all, I think I gave it a 4. And I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
But the sense of direction on everything, it was solid. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a 4.
All righty.
Dig it.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 4 too. And
did.
there's like nothing. Yeah, there's like nothing else I can say that hasn't already been said. But the only thing I was thinking about where you were talking about like the newspaper clippings in the beginning, at the end he's doing that too.
Yes,
What-
I did notice that.
So it does because they did say like, oh, you'll still be yourself, blah 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 blah. So I think that was playing into where we were like, oh, he's still himself. Like he's clipping the newspaper clippings. Like he wouldn't be doing that if he was, an alien or whatever. But then that goes back into like, was he pretending so he wouldn't get caught? Like, I don't know. But there's nothing I can complain about with the direction. I think the scenes for the time are set up beautifully, and it's again, it's not a 5 because I feel like it's just not. You know what I mean? There are things that you can be like, this is perfectly tied up with a pretty bow, epic, like this is amazing and this is great, but I don't want to do things that are a 5, like an injustice by giving it a 5. So, but it's close enough, and I love it. It is one of my favorites, but I gave it a 4.
All right. So that final category out of 5 before we begin to wrap this all up is the it factor. So the it factor generally refers to the cultural significance, as in there are a lot of ways people look at this. Jonathan has a unique way of looking at it. I have a different way of looking at it. And I love that about this category is it's pretty open to interpretation. But for me, I look at it as, are people still talking about this movie? Is this a movie that, I kind of look at the cultural relevance as, is it TikTok relevant? Is it being talked about today? Are there podcasts being done about this movie, which is like a fourth wall break because that's what we are. But, how relevant is this movie? So for me, I give it a 3. When it comes to cultural relevance, because if you are into sci-fi horror, this is known as one of the greatest sci-fi horror films there is. However, if you're not, you've probably never heard of this film. And so that's where that line is drawn. It's got a stacked cast from Jeff Goldblum, Donald Sutherland, Leonard Nimoy, stacked cast. So you could get to this movie by following any of those actors. You could get to it by following Kaufman. You could get to it by following alien invasion films. So there are a couple different ways that you could get to this. But it was Chicago Film Critics Association named it the 59th scariest film ever made. So there we go. I found it. So
Chicago.
Yeah. And 59th is... it's not first or second or third, but there are a lot of horror films, and to be on that list is significant.
Yeah.
And I do think that's something for a movie that we mentioned earlier. It's PG.
Yep.
It is very subtle in its horror, because what it's conveying is this sense of isolation and just sheer paranoia. It's not people being mutilated. It is not possession and occult stuff. It is the idea that you cannot trust anybody around you. And it builds on that. Yeah.
Would you say this is, what is that new category? Elevated horror or whatever?
Yeah.
Would you say this is maybe like a precursor to like elevated horror where it gets you more thinking?
Oh, I would say watching this, I was like, if A24, a studio like A24 redid this movie today,
yeah,
I think it would be a huge hit.
Yeah.
And I do think it has to take that approach of elevating it, much like this movie did. As I've said, I think there are very few flaws with this movie. I'll get into it with my final thoughts. But elevating it to just feed off your paranoia. And we already distrust people constantly in our lives. And to just think that your closest friend has actually been replaced with somebody you don't know and is out to get you is a terrifying notion.
Yeah.
You know, on the outside, they are the person you've known your entire life. On the inside, they're a complete stranger. That's horrifying.
Yep.
And so I love that for this movie. I give it a 3 because, again, like I said, if you're not into sci-fi horror, you have probably never seen this film. But I think that's a shame. I think you should see this film. And I'll tell you why in a second, why I have issues with it. But I love this movie still. So it's a 3 on the it factor. I think it should be talked about more, but it's not. So it's a 3.
On the it factor, I put it as a 3 as well. Unfortunately, I hadn't seen this soon enough. I have seen The Invasion, the Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig one. I loved that one growing up. That was one of my mom's top tier movies, and it was, all right, hey, we're gonna have a seat and we're gonna watch a movie on the couch, and it's gonna be The Invasion. Okay, all right, yeah, next week. Hey, we're gonna have a seat down and we're gonna watch The Invasion. Okay, all right, I got it. I get the gist of it. But as Dad would always tell me, it was The Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The People Under the Stairs and Cat People.
People under the stairs.
He said those ones were the ones that would fuck him up when he was a kid growing up. And he said, I'm not going to let you watch them until you're older. And then we were always too drunk to even watch it. And so if we did watch it, I was too drunk to watch it, Dad. I don't know. But, the significance of it, I'd say it's best if maybe we could bring this to, like, our children. I mean, sure, there's boobs. There's a little bit of blood. But it ain't something that, kids ain't going to see on fucking TikTok or YouTube or whatever.
It's less boobs than what you see.
Yeah, you get some nipple shot.
It's tasteful.
Yeah.
It is tasteful.
It's tasteful. It's not a nasty, dirty way to watch it. If I could say it's time for a good, nice revolution to bring back the old 70s movies, 80s movies, let's bring them back. I'd say this would be this would be 5. Yeah. And it would be a lot higher rating on that. You said 59? If people watched it today and actually had a better mindset to just shut their brains off, get off the fucking thoughts of watching YouTube, TikTok, they'd be like, whoa, this is an actual damn good movie.
Uh-huh.
So, I'll still stick with the 3, but, it is what it is in the day of our technology of what we have today.
Yeah.
Everybody's so used to CGI and not practical effects.
I agree.
Okay. Fine, Strawberry, I'll go. So for being an it factor, being when this film came out, and like Leonard Nimoy is like the big draw for the sci-fi crowd. So him being in the film definitely draws a lot of attention to it, especially as a remake. That's just what draws the sci-fi crowd in general, is people like him and all the stuff he's already done with Star Trek. So people are going to be like, oh, alien film going on. Let's check this out. Now, even though Evan and I are like the last 2 people, I guess, to ever watch the film,
I don't think you're the last 2.
No, but I've always heard reference to the film growing up in a lot of different stuff. I've always been aware of what it is. I just never got around to being drawn in enough for any particular reason to sit down and watch it, because there's always been something far crazier and more fantastical for me to put my eyeballs on and get soaked into. So I still liked it. I still thought it was a great film. That whole idea of, the homogenization of people and being complacent and just all being the same is still a scary thing that nobody really wants, because who wants to lose their individuality, right? So Still pretty kick-ass. I sit with a 3 as well on the factor. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I originally put it at a 4, and I don't know if I kept it at a 4 or moved it to a 3.
I can tell you.
Can you tell?
You had it at a 4.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think for me, I want it to be more of a 4. I want to believe it's more of a cult classic than it actually is. Because when I think of like cult classic, horror movies, it's like this and like They Live. I like The Shining. Like I like a whole different type of horror though than I think a lot of people like. I can't take the Saw movies. There's a lot of horror movies I don't like, and for me this is something that is a little deeper, and it does deal with different types of issues, and it is just like scarier to me. I want it to be higher, but I know it's not. Like, I know it's not. I feel like if it's something I mentioned to somebody, like, randomly, they'd be like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, and I do have a lot of friends that, like, my cool friends, and like, my one friend, Rachel, she's an artist, and she actually painted that scene with Donald Sutherland, like, and it's amazing.
It's so good.
Sweet.
That will be the, I'm drawing that as the background for the video, so that will be the drawing. Yep.
That to me is just like such a, like, when if I were to pull up like scenes in my head of like classic, that would be one of them. I want it to be bigger. I do feel like it's underrated, but I know that it's not something a lot of people have seen, and I know it's something that it's probably lower on the scale. So I want it at a 4, but I would say it's probably a 3.
Okay. All right. So I will lead us into wrapping this episode up. So leading into our entertained, how entertained were you? This is our only 1 out of 10. This is where, most podcasts are going to talk about, how entertained they were. What is it out of 10? So for me, and then we'll go into our final scores. We can kind of lump that all together. So for me, I'm an 8 out of 10 on this. This movie is fantastic. I love this film. I love the first 2/3 of this film. I think the problem with this film is that after that scene where all 4 of them kind of fall asleep and the 4 pod people start to wake up and we have him smashing his pod person head, after that, the movie drags on for about 20 minutes too long. So I would say up until that point, it's perfection. After that point, it needs trimmed. So I don't think there's any problem necessarily with anything that happens at the end. I just think it needs cut, sharpened up, trimmed, because it goes from them running to hiding, running to hiding, running to hiding, the end. And it just becomes a little bit too much at a movie that is nearly 2 hours long. I don't have a problem with a 2-hour long movie, but in this case, I think this film works better at 1 hour and 40 minutes. Sharpen up the editing at the end, and I could have been harsher on some of my scores, but I put it into this because the fact is, I think it's brilliantly executed across the board. I just think it needed some more time being cut. I do like the scene of him trying to burn down the pod plant, for lack of better terms. I think that's good. I just think there are Matthew and Elizabeth run and hide, run and hide, run and hide, and for 20 minutes too much. So that's where my criticism of this movie lies. I think the acting is brilliant. I think the script is fantastic. I think the direction, I almost docked him because the movie feels too long. But it was just so smart the way he executed it that I couldn't. I ended up putting it in story and some other spots, but man, it goes in here. The fact that it is 20 minutes too long takes away from some of my enjoyment. This would be a 10 out of 10 if it was 20 minutes shorter. I can tell you that right now. I would watch it again because this is a movie that you pick up on a lot the next time you watch it. You pick up on more each time. But I do think there is a weakness in the final act. So it's not that the resolution is bad, it's just that it takes too long. So for me, overall, it's an 8 out of 10 on enjoyment. And my final score, I'm pretty high on this one because I told you this is one of my favorites it's one of my favorites. It is my favorite sci-fi horror film. So I'm a 44 or a 4.5 stars out of 5 for this film because I love this film. I just think it's 20 minutes too long, and that is its only problem. So that's where I'm at on this one.
Cool, man. I enjoyed the heck out of it for what it was. Just a lot of craziness going on, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to escape it, only to find out that there is no escape, and you're fucked. Yeah, it's awesome. Seeing Leonard Nimoy being this collaborator, this gaslighter, and just making everybody feel like they're going out of their mind, even though they're trying to make it seem rational for some reason. I enjoyed the heck out of it, man. I gave it a 7.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
You have your total score, Jonathan? Or you need me?
Oh, yeah. Overall, I had after my changes for my ups, gave it a 34.
Yep. So 3.5 stars for you.
Ooh.
Nice. Go ahead, Evan.
Ladies first.
Okay. I didn't realize that this was a 2-hour long movie. It's almost 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It was. I saw the time. I was like, "Shit, this is a long film." Oh
I think
God.
it's like an hour and 55 minutes.
So the fact that I didn't realize that this was that long of a movie, I like when you said that, I was like, "What?" Makes me like it more because I did not realize it was that long. I to keep my attention is very hard to do. But I do have a problem with like the run and hide just to lose. Like I really don't like movies where in the end it is a bleak. I like to have hope. I don't like the worst thing for me is watching a movie where it's not just straight up like a slash or whatever, but when you watch a movie that's a little bit more in depth and you fall in love with these characters just for everybody to like die. For me, it's annoying because I'm like, why did I watch this? Mm-hmm. So that's where like my problem comes in. But now that we're talking about, well, was that really what happened? Was he pretending? That's interesting. For me, I give it a 4.5 just because I still really like this movie. Just something that just sits with me so nicely. I like it. I'll watch it again. I'll tell people to watch it. Like, it's still a favorite of mine. Yeah. And it's underrated.
It is. So you were 9 out of 10.
Definitely worth watching.
Yeah, 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome.
I put it at an 8 out of 10. Kind of where you were saying, Tim, is just that last 20 minutes could have been cut.
Too much runaround.
I was like, this is going a little bit far, just kind of cut that right there. The whole movie, as I was watching it, I was thoroughly engaged. My wife was doing something. I think she was watching TikTok or whatever she was doing. And I said, hey, honey, this is a good damn movie. I'll rewatch it. She said, was it really? I said, yeah. I said, especially after you just watched the fucking 50s version. I said, this is much better. No, I kid around because that one had its own good things. But as I told her, I said, it was solidly acted. The sense of direction, the way everything was going, the suspense, the music, the cues, the ambiance, like I had said earlier, it just kind of was like it's unsettling at times, and you're just like, okay, I like a movie that's gonna make me unsettled because it's hard to do with today's movies. You got blood, gore, you got this, you got that. but something that makes you actually feel a bit of sense of dread. Just by looking at the world around you, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say it's an 8 out of 10. I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not gonna lie, I've only watched it twice. I might have watched it 3 times, but like I said, I probably was too drunk the first time. I could probably give it a 4.5 out of 5 after another rewatch, but I have to go for another rewatch to say that. But
Make sure your wife sees the Banjo Man face dog.
Banjo, hold on.
Make sure your wife sees the Banjo Man face dog.
That's a good.
That disturbed me. I was like, "Fuck."
Too.
Yep, that got my wife too.
Okay, because
she's
already been mad at me because I made her watch The Greasy Strangler, and she didn't like that.
I don't know what that is. That sounds rough.
After about 10 times she's watched it, it's kind of growing on.
You gotta watch The Greasy Strangler.
The nightclub recently did The Greasy Strangler.
Yes, you gotta watch it.
It sounds greasy.
Oh, it's
greasy.
It's greasy.
So greasy.
So together, our average comes to a 39.5 or a 40 out of 50. So 4 stars out of 5 for the 4 of us. But this is where we need listeners to go ahead, send us your scores as well. So that's all we have for that one. As we wrap up our deep dive into the 1978 invasion of the Body Snatchers, we've explored not only the film's chilling atmosphere and haunting performances, but also its significant impact on both the sci-fi and the horror genre. With its timeless themes of paranoia, identity loss, and societal fear, it's no wonder this film has left such a lasting legacy. A huge thanks to our guests for joining us in this conversation, adding their unique perspectives to the discussion. Be sure to follow them and continue the horror chat over on their platforms. As we move deeper into our 13 Nights of Halloween series, it's films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers that remind us why horror can be so powerful and reflective of our own collective fears. Don't forget to check out the cocktail pairing for tonight's episode over on our Instagram and submit your own reviews. Let us know if you think this version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers holds up against the original, or if it's just another pod person in disguise. Keep watching this, guys, and your friends. Stay tuned for more thrills, chills, and scares as we continue with 13 Nights of Halloween.
Oh, yeah.